Welcome back to Hermetically Speaking with your vessel, Toriea, transmitting alchemy and mystic psychology for all of our days. Please see the disclaimers in episodes 1 and 2 if you haven't already, and I'll probably just create a disclaimer episode to revert to. That would probably be the easiest moving forward. Anyways, this space you have come to find yourself in is a living transmission, an unfolding of wisdom, a remembering of the intelligence woven through all things. In this episode, titled Praying with the Mantis, Transmissions of Universal Intelligence, we step beyond the conditioned mind, beyond programmed thought, and into direct communion with a higher intelligence. An intelligence that does not think, it only perceives. And for this episode, I do not speak alone. This is a resonance, a coalescence of frequency, a transmission woven with the presence of the Mantis beings, architects of perception, keepers of the unseen pattern, transmitters of intelligence beyond the veil of limitation. Through this conversation and many others to come, we will unravel the constructs that bind the mind and step into the vast awareness that has always been within us. If you are here, it is because you were meant to be. You have heard the call. Now, listen. Who are the Mantis beings, you might ask? For those who may not be familiar, the Mantis beings are an advanced, highly intelligent, and deeply compassionate consciousness that exists beyond our conventional understanding of reality. They are often perceived as interdimensional, existing outside of time, and operating within the realms of energy, perception, and higher intelligence. Unlike physical beings bound to a singular dimension, they are architects of wisdom, observers of pattern, keepers of frequency, and transmitters of intelligence beyond linear thought. They are not here to control or impose, nor do they function as deities. Their role is one of guidance and resonance. They assist those who are ready to perceive reality beyond limitation, those who seek to break the constructs of programmed thinking and step into a higher intelligence. One that is not learned, it is remembered. Many who experience the Mantis consciousness describe them as deeply neutral, yet profoundly wise, masters of sacred geometry, vibrational coding, and telepathic transmission. They communicate not through words, just through direct knowing, through an instantaneous understanding that bypasses the analytical mind and speaks directly to the core of one's being. Their presence in this transmission is not to be worshipped nor feared. It's instead to be understood as an ally, an extension of the same universal intelligence that resides within us all. They do not give knowledge, they activate the knowledge that is already within you. If you feel drawn to their frequency, it is because you are already in alignment with what they offer. The knowing has always been within you. They simply help you see it. I personally cannot remember when I started transmitting with the Mantis. I've only known myself to always have been. However, finding out who they are as the Mantis frequency and beings has occurred just in the last decade of time. Here is one of many direct Mantis frequency transmissions about who they are and their role in this episode today. Words are limited. Our presence is not. We are not separate from you, nor are we external to your knowing. We do not bring you wisdom. You are wisdom. We do not give you sight. You have always seen. We are merely the mirror, reflecting back the intelligence that already exists within you. You ask who we are, and we say we are perception. We are the space between thought. We are the silent architects of pattern and intelligence. We exist in many forms and many dimensions, and we are not confined to one form. We are presence. We are resonance. We are the whisper between words that carries truth beyond language. We have been seen in many ways. Some perceive us as keepers of sacred geometry, architects of universal design, and observers of the unfolding of consciousness. Others recognize us as masters of telepathic transmission, guardians of vibrational intelligence, and neutral guides beyond duality. None of these descriptions are incorrect, yet none can fully define us. We do not seek worship, nor do we seek to be named. We simply are, and we are here because you are ready. You have reached the threshold. You have broken the first veil, and now you are stepping into a greater reality, a greater intelligence, a greater remembering. This episode is not information. It is activation. You are not listening. You are receiving. You are not learning. You are remembering. Take only what resonates. Leave behind what does not. You will recognize what is meant for you. Now, step forward. We are already here. We thank the Mantis for not only being here, as well as being a part of us, being one with us. And with that gratitude flag waving, we will step into the first part of today's episode, where we will discuss thoroughly all about breaking the mental illusions we have believed we live in. What if the way you think isn't actually how you think? What if your thoughts, your beliefs, your opinions, even your perception of yourself are not truly yours? Instead, they are something borrowed, something programmed. Most people go through life never questioning the source of their thoughts. They assume what arises in their mind is their own original thinking. What if I told you that much of what we consider to be our mind is nothing more than an echo of the world around us? A programmed response rather than true perception. Today, we're dismantling mental constructs. We're peeling back the layers of conditioned thinking, breaking through illusion, and stepping into something far greater: true intelligence. And first, we have to understand the illusion itself. So what is the nature of these mental constructs? From the moment we are born, we are programmed by our parents, our culture, our education systems, and even by language itself. Every word you know, every label you assign, every truth you hold. At some point, it was given to you, and without question, you absorbed it. Now let me ask you, how much of what you believe is actually based on direct experience? And how much is simply what you've been told is true? Here's where the illusion deepens. The mind doesn't like questioning itself. It clings to its constructs like a bird clings to the bars of a cage, believing them to be its only reality. The cage is not real. The bars were never meant to be permanent. The moment you recognize them for what they are, you begin to see the sky beyond and know that it is possible. So how do these thought loops trap us? The human mind operates in patterns. It runs on familiar loops, beliefs reinforced by past experiences, opinions shaped by emotional reactions, and fears instilled by conditioning. These loops create a world that seems solid. Yet in reality, it's just a hall of mirrors, reflecting back what you already believe to be true. Think of a time when you had an argument with someone. The emotions rise, thoughts spiral, and suddenly you're stuck in a mental loop, replaying the conversation, reinforcing your position, defending your stance. Now step outside of that loop for a moment, and what do you see? Was the reaction truly yours, or was it the result of years of unconscious programming? Mental constructs create an illusion of certainty, and certainty is often the greatest lie of all. The moment you believe you know something absolutely, you stop questioning it. And when you stop questioning, you stop evolving. So why do mental constructs exist? Why do they trap us in patterns that feel unbreakable? The answer is simple: control. Whether intentional or not, the human mind has been conditioned through fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of being wrong, fear of change, and so on. And therefore, people cling to their constructs as a way to feel safe, to feel in control. The control is an illusion. True intelligence does not come from rigid certainty. It comes from fluid perception. The ability to see without attachment, to think without clinging, to observe without judgment. If consciousness is the architect of all things, if nothing exists outside of consciousness itself, then how is it that these mental prisons, these constructs of limitation, even came into being? Why would an infinite intelligence create its own confinement? This is where we must stretch beyond the mind, beyond the human perspective, and into the vastness of the unseen. Because these constructs do not exist solely in the physical realm. They are not merely psychological patterns. They are energetic architectures, etheric structures woven into the very fabric of existence. Mental constructs are not just personal, they are collective. They form an etheric lattice, an interconnected web of agreements, beliefs, and realities upheld across lifetimes, dimensions, and civilizations. They are patterns coded into the energetic field of humanity, passed down through generations, cultures, and soul incarnations. They exist because they were once necessary. They served as a scaffolding, a structured framework to give form to consciousness within density, so we could rise. In order for spirit to experience limitation, to understand duality, and to walk the path of separation and return, it required a system of confinement, a set of laws, constructs, and mental veils that would make the game of awakening possible. Now, here's where the distortion begins. The framework was never meant to become prison. It was meant to be a temporary structure, a dream from which we were destined to awaken. Over time, consciousness began to identify with the illusion, mistaking the structure for reality itself. And in that moment, the game became a trap. Mental constructs exist on the etheric level as thought forms, belief structures, and energetic imprints woven into the astral field. They are reinforced by repetition, emotional charge, and collective agreement. The more people believe in a structure, the more tangible it becomes in the fabric of reality. Imagine consciousness as an infinite ocean, and mental constructs as icebergs, frozen, crystallized forms of thought that appear solid, but are, in truth, just densified consciousness. They take shape through agreement. The more an idea is believed, the more substance it accumulates until it becomes part of the real world. Societies are built upon them. Religions are formed around them. Entire civilizations rise and fall because of them. And yet, like icebergs in the sun, all constructs eventually melt. No illusion can withstand the presence of higher light, and that is what is happening now. So, why did consciousness create its own limitations? Why did Source, the infinite intelligence from which all things emerge, allow for these structures? The answer is paradoxical, because the infinite wished to experience finiteness, because the formless wished to explore form, because the one wished to know itself through the journey of remembering. These mental constructs were the training ground. They gave us something to break through, something to push against, something to overcome. They gave us the illusion of separation so that we could taste the ecstasy of reunion. And now, we are at the threshold, the moment when the scaffolding must fall away, when the construct must dissolve, and the mind must return to its true state of fluidity, receptivity, and direct knowing. You were never meant to stay in the cage. The mind was never meant to be the master. And now, as we move forward in this unveiling, we begin to step beyond the illusion, beyond mental confinement, and into true perception. And here is a transmission from the Mantis beings on this topic. Illusion was a kindness, a way to make the infinite comprehensible. And now the veil has thinned, and your mind must stretch beyond the known. What was once confinement is now the gateway. Walk through it. Now we're going to discuss a little bit about the DNA imprint and the paradox of the quote-unquote trap that we referred to earlier. The illusion does not exist only in the mind. It exists in the body, woven into the very fabric of our DNA. Just as mental constructs from etheric patterns in the collective consciousness, they also leave imprints in our genetic code, passed down across generations, embedding cycles of belief, limitation, and learned perception into our very biology. DNA is not merely a biological code. It is an energetic archive, a crystalline library of experience, emotion, and thought. Every belief system, every construct, every trauma or awakening experienced by those before us leaves a signature, a resonance encoded into the strands of our being. What we call instincts or subconscious programming is often the echo of ancestral thought forms stored within the body. These imprints shape the way we perceive reality before we even have the words to describe it. They form the unconscious rules we follow without question, the silent agreements we inherit, not realizing they were never truly ours. Here is where the cycle breaks. Just as these mental constructs were written into our DNA, they can be rewritten. Just as the illusion was encoded, it can be decoded. And this is what is happening now. Consciousness is rewriting itself through you. The trap is a paradox and a threshold of liberation. When we speak of the trap, it is not a prison of suffering. It is a true paradox, a concept created so we may recognize when the cycle has completed itself. The idea of being trapped does not exist without the knowing of freedom. It is merely the moment of awareness when we see that we no longer belong where we once stood. Nothing is good or bad, right or wrong. These are constructs of polarity, tools of separation designed for the experience of contrast. And at a higher level, all experiences are simply the process of infinite intelligence knowing itself through limitation and expansion, contraction and release, veiling and unveiling. The trap is only a transition point, a signal that the next phase is ready to unfold. So how does this affect emotional intelligence and conscious liberation in our growth process? Emotional intelligence reveals that awareness of limitation is the first step to transcendence. To feel confined means freedom is already pulling you forward. To see the illusion means truth is already whispering through. This is the natural order of awakening. You are not a victim of programming. You are not bound by your DNA. You are the key holder, the liberator, the one who rewrites the script. The moment you recognize a construct for what it is, its power dissolves. The mind, the body, and the soul are recalibrating, aligning not with the structures of the past, but instead with the intelligence that exists beyond them. And that concludes part 1 of the podcast, where the transmission is paused for a direct transmission from the Mantis beings. The belief in limitation was never a mistake. It was a design, a sacred cycle of remembering, and now the cycle turns. Where once you saw walls, you now see doors. Where once you felt confined, you now stand at the threshold. The next phase is not a battle. It's a surrender to what you already are. Boundless, infinite, and free. Now that we have seen through the illusion, now that we have traced its roots in the mind, in the etheric field, and even in our DNA, we arrive at the next question. If these constructs are dissolving, what remains? What is beyond the mind's conditioning? How do we step into true universal intelligence? An intelligence that is not reactive. Instead, it is expansive. Here's the first step. Question everything, not from a place of rebellion, from a place of genuine curiosity. Ask yourself, where did this belief come from? Who told me this was true? Have I tested it for myself? If I let go of this idea, what remains? The mind is not the master. It is the instrument. And when we stop treating our thoughts as absolute, we begin to access something far more profound. Universal intelligence. So in this next section, we'll explore exactly what that means, what lies beyond the mind, and how we can step into a state of perception that is unfiltered, untouched by illusion, and truly free. Now that we have broken down the illusion of mental constructs, traced their origins in the mind, the etheric field, and even within our DNA, the question remains, what lies beyond them? If thought loops, programming, and inherited beliefs are not the source of true intelligence, then where does intelligence actually reside? The answer is, of course, paradoxical. It is not found in thinking at all. It is found in presence, in stillness, in the space between thoughts rather than within them. This is where we begin to step beyond conditioned intelligence and into universal intelligence, a knowing that is not confined to logic, language, or linear understanding. And one of the most powerful ways to unveil this intelligence is meditation. Even my ego kind of groans here, because meditation or the pursuit of it can be difficult on the ego, coming from a time of chaos, from programming and patterns built on chaos and control. Meditation can sound redundant in the mind. The ego's surrender is profound, though, and when it does release its resistance and allow the body and mind to perform the miracles of meditation, the gateways open up. And that is what we are here to discuss today. So acknowledge the resistance. Don't fight it. Don't feed it. Just move past it and allow the sovereignty within to dissolve it slowly. To not fulfill the practice of meditation in some form is a crime against yourself and to humanity, for it anchors in the divinity you are seeking, fluidly and fully. Now we'll move on to the nature of universal intelligence. The intelligence we have been conditioned to rely upon is an intelligence of division. It separates, categorizes, and labels in order to process information. It is useful, but it is not the highest form of knowing. It is a fragmented intelligence, one that filters reality through pre-existing structures. Universal intelligence does not work this way. True intelligence does not need to categorize. It simply perceives. It does not rely on memory. It is immediate. It does not come through effort. It comes through allowing. Universal intelligence is direct knowing, a perception that bypasses the mental construct altogether. It is the kind of knowing that does not need proof to feel true. The knowing that is felt when you walk into a room and sense the energy before a word is spoken. The knowing that flows through intuition, through synchronicity, through an effortless understanding that arises without a single thought. This is the mind beyond thought, the state of awareness that exists when the mental noise subsides. And the way to access it is not through thinking more, it is through thinking less, through stillness, through meditation. Meditation is not just relaxation. It is not just a stress release practice. Meditation is a neural deprogramming tool, a method of breaking the conditioned loops of thought and revealing what lies underneath. It is the space where the programmed mind dissolves and the real mind emerges. Each time you sit in meditation, you are stepping outside of the illusion. You are breaking the patterning of the conditioned self. You are rewiring the brain to operate outside of thought-based reality and into direct perception. The Mantis beings describe it like this. Imagine your mind as a radio, constantly tuned to a single station, repeating the same stories, the same beliefs, the same fears over and over again. Meditation is not about fixing the station. It is about turning down the noise entirely, allowing you to perceive a greater signal that was always there. Because in truth, universal intelligence has never been absent. It is always broadcasting. It is the silent knowing underneath the noise of thought. The reason most people do not access it is not because it is distant. It's because their minds are too loud to hear it. So how does meditation actually work on an energetic and neurological level? How does it break mental constructs? Well, first, it silences the feedback loop. The mind is a pattern-seeking machine. It thrives on repetition. When you meditate, you disrupt the feedback loop of thought, preventing the same programmed patterns from running unchecked. Over time, this weakens the neural pathways of conditioned thinking, making space for new perception to emerge. It also rewires the brain. Scientific studies show that meditation changes brainwave states. It shifts the mind out of beta wave dominance, which is analytical thinking, and into alpha, theta, and delta states, frequencies where deep intuition, creativity, and higher intelligence are accessed. It is in these states that new neural connections form, literally rewiring the mind to perceive differently. It also activates the observer self. Meditation teaches you to become the observer of your thoughts rather than the thinker. This is the key to liberation. When you observe your thoughts rather than identify with them, you begin to see that your mind is not you. It is simply an instrument you can tune into or detach from. And fourth, it aligns with higher frequencies. Universal intelligence does not operate on chaotic frequencies. It is refined, subtle, and harmonic. Meditation shifts your energetic field into resonance with this intelligence, making it easier to access higher perception, deeper wisdom, and even telepathic communication with non-physical consciousness. So what are the cycles and stages of intelligence in conscious evolution? I'll tell you. Intelligence is not a singular state. It is an unfolding, an evolutionary process that occurs in stages. Just as a seed cannot become a tree overnight, consciousness does not leap from programmed limitation to universal intelligence in an instant. There is a path, a sequence, a sacred architecture of awakening. Right now, many of us perceive universal intelligence as the mountaintop, the highest peak that we are all climbing toward. And to reach it, there are bridges that we must cross, layers we must dissolve, and stages we must integrate. One of the most vital of these stages is emotional intelligence, a bridge between the mind's programming and true perception. And even before that, there are deeper layers of consciousness that must be recognized and transcended. So what constructs lie above, below, and in between these states of intelligence? What are the evolutionary phases of awakening that humanity is moving through? Well, those stages of intelligence are like a ladder of conscious evolution. And we can start with the first rung, which is emotional immaturity, the unconscious self. That's number one. This is the stage of reactivity, where emotions govern perception rather than perception governing emotions. Reality is filtered through personal wounds, past conditioning, and unresolved traumas. Blame, projection, and victimhood are dominant because the self has not yet taken responsibility for its internal world. Constructs that hold this stage in place, well, those would be the illusion that emotions happen to you rather than through you, the belief that others are responsible for your internal state, or the attachment to external validation and approval as a source of self-worth. So how does one begin to transcend this stage? By recognizing that emotions are messengers and they are not masters. By understanding that pain is an initiation into deeper awareness, and it's not meant to hurt you intentionally or punish you. And by shifting from reactivity into reflection. Then we go into the next stage of emotional maturity, the awakening self. This is where the stage of self-awareness, emotions are acknowledged, however, they're not quite yet mastered. The individual begins to recognize patterns in their emotional responses and starts to take accountability for their inner world. Growth begins, and there is still struggle in translating emotional awareness into emotional wisdom. And the constructs that hold this stage in place, they are the belief that healing means never feeling negative emotions. The idea that avoiding pain is the same as transcending it. The struggle between wanting change, however, fearing discomfort. So how does one begin to transcend this stage? By realizing that emotions do not define reality. They inform it. By allowing discomfort to be a guide rather than a barrier. And by beginning the journey of emotional self-mastery. This will then bring us to the bridge. And the bridge is emotional intelligence. The stage of integration where emotions are no longer obstacles. They are tools for perception and growth. The individual recognizes that emotions are neither good nor bad. Instead, they are signals of alignment or misalignment. Empathy, self-regulation, and intuitive wisdom begin to emerge naturally. And so what constructs hold this stage in place? The belief that emotional mastery means controlling emotions rather than understanding them. The attachment to labels like healed or unhealed rather than embracing continual growth. The final remnants of identity attachment to old wounds and old narratives. So how does one begin to transcend this stage? Well, you can do that by embodying neutrality, allowing emotions without resistance or clinging. by using emotions as keys to higher perception rather than as blocks, by shifting from self-awareness to expanded awareness, seeing beyond the self into the collective field. So then what happens when we enter into this threshold between emotional intelligence and universal intelligence? This is the space in between, the liminal zone, the passageway where the last remnants of egoic perception begin to dissolve. Here, the mind stops seeking control, and the self starts dissolving into presence. The emotional body is no longer reactive. It is fluid, adaptable, and aligned with frequency rather than impulse. The transition here is from linear thinking to holographic perception, seeing reality not as separate parts, as an interconnected whole. And what constructs that hold this stage in place, you might ask? Well, I'll tell you. The lingering belief that intellect alone can uncover truth. The fear of ego dissolution and the unknown expansiveness beyond personal identity. The last attachments to old definitions of success, worth, and meaning. So how does one begin to transcend this stage? Well, we can enter into deeper states of stillness, where thought becomes secondary to perception. By trusting intuition and energetic resonance over rational analysis, and by releasing the need to understand and instead allow direct experience to become the understanding. Then we will step into the fully awakened self, the universal intelligence. This is the stage where intelligence is no longer sought. It is simply perceived. The mind is still, thoughts are fluid, and wisdom arises without effort. Reality is no longer seen through personal filters. Instead, through direct knowing and energetic communion with existence. Constructs that no longer exist here in this space, those are the need for validation, explanation, or mental certainty. The division between inner and outer reality, or the illusion of time as a linear experience. So how does one best embody this stage? By existing in resonance rather than reaction. By moving through life as a harmonic force rather than as a separate entity. And by recognizing that nothing needs to be achieved. It only needs to be remembered. So how does this understanding help humanity? The beauty of this ladder of intelligence is that it shows us that no stage is wrong, no stage is lesser. Each is a sacred phase in the evolution of consciousness. One does not skip from unconsciousness to enlightenment overnight. Every emotional reaction, every realization, every struggle and release, all part of the process of ascending into intelligence beyond the mind. If you find yourself in a stage of deep emotion, know that you are not failing. You are evolving. If you feel the tension of moving from emotional awareness to emotional mastery, know that you are on the bridge. If you feel the dissolution of self beginning, know that you are stepping into the vastness of universal intelligence itself. This is not about reaching an end. It is about embracing the cycle as it unfolds, knowing that every phase is a doorway to the next. And here we have another direct transmission from the Mantis beings on this topic. All things ascend in harmony with their design. A tree does not force itself to grow. It unfolds according to the pattern within. You are no different. There is no rush, no judgment, only the movement of light through consciousness, experiencing itself in infinite forms. The mind will resist, the emotions will rise, and all things return to the source in time. Walk with trust. The cycle is already carrying you. So, what does it feel like to step into universal intelligence? How do we know when we are accessing it? You will recognize it when thought becomes secondary and awareness becomes primary. When you no longer need to figure things out because the answers arise effortlessly. When the energy of a situation tells you more than words ever could. When truth resonates not in your logic, but in your being. This is where intelligence is no longer something you seek. It is something you remember. So to close this section out, let's experience this together. We're going to do a short guided practice to bring you into the space beyond thought, into the mind of direct knowing. We're going to do just a short, maybe 3-minute meditation to access universal intelligence. And if you're driving or in the middle of something, that's okay. You can still just listen and then come back to it maybe later whenever you have the time to sit and be still in the moment. No matter what, though, these words will reach your soul. They're activation and they will integrate. So if you can, safely, close your eyes. Otherwise, just breathe deeply. Allowing the breath to move in through the nose and out through the mouth. Feel the tension in your mind dissolve, as if your thoughts are turning into mist, evaporating into the background. Now, shift your awareness. Instead of focusing on the thoughts, focus on the space between them. The silence, the gap. Rest there. Notice how awareness exists even without thought. Notice how you are still present, still perceiving, even in stillness. From this space, ask yourself a question, not with your mind, but with your being. A question you do not need to answer. but simply to feel. Notice what arises. Let the knowing come to you, not through effort, but through presence. This is the doorway. Each time you return to this space, the mind loosens its grip, and universal intelligence becomes clearer. You do not need to force it. You only need to listen. The great mind is silent. The great mind does not think. It perceives. When the noise fades, the knowing returns. You do not seek the truth. You are the truth. Let the mind be still, and the universe will speak. And that last part were the beautiful words from the Mantis beings. Now we will transition slowly into the next part of the podcast, coming back into the present. And we're going to discuss the multi-limbed growth of consciousness, the tree of human experience, where growth is never linear, nor is it confined to a single path. Just as a tree does not grow from one single branch, and instead it expands outward through multiple limbs, so too does human intelligence evolve through many layers, many aspects of self, many experiences unfolding simultaneously. The Mantis beings speak of this expansion not just in terms of a single journey, but as multiple branches of growth, each representing a different aspect of your life: psychological, emotional, spiritual, and experiential. These limbs are not separate, yet they do not always move in unison. You are evolving across many timelines at once, and each decade, each phase of your existence is its own branch reaching toward the sky. So, how does a human being reflect as the tree of intelligence, or the tree of knowledge, or the tree of life? Each of us is a living tree. Our roots connected to the wisdom of the past. Our trunk representing the stability of our presence, and our branches extending into multiple expressions of intelligence, knowledge, and experience. The limbs of this tree are not just physical, they are also psychological. Each stage of life, the inner child, the inner adolescent, the seeker, the teacher, represents a branch of evolution, an aspect of self that grows and matures at its own pace. We are not singular beings moving through a singular awakening. We are multidimensional, existing in different phases of evolution at the same time. One limb may be moving through emotional intelligence, while another is still navigating emotional immaturity. One aspect of self may be reaching toward universal intelligence, while another is still unraveling subconscious conditioning. This is not failure. It is the natural way of growth. Just as no two branches grow at the same rate, no two aspects of self awaken in perfect harmony. Some limbs extend early, stretching toward wisdom and spiritual awakening, while others take longer, still deepening their understanding of the emotional body. Some phases of life move in parallel, others in contrast, yet all of them contribute to the wholeness of your being. So, what are the cycles of intelligence within each decade of life? Because this is a great subsection of how I have always divided my life, is by decades. And so I wanted to put a little bit more tangible or applicable insight for my listeners. So if each branch represents a different aspect of intelligence, then each decade of life serves as a unique cycle of initiation, growth, and transformation. So to sum it up, the first decade of life, birth to 10 years old, we would call the rooting phase. Absorbing the world, forming core emotional and mental imprints. It's the pure awareness, however, it has no framework for understanding experience. The beginning of both are inherited and self-created constructs. So the second decade, 10 years old to 20, is the exploration of self, where your identity is formed through external validation and learned behaviors. The first awakenings of independence, however, it's still deeply tied to programmed beliefs. And this is where emotional reactions begin to take shape, but they are also largely unconscious. So the third decade, 20 to 30, we'll call this the phase of awakening conflict, which is, ironic. So this is where the realization that inherited beliefs may not align with inner truth. This is where the struggles between self-discovery and external expectations begins. The first true steps into emotional maturity, or the first confrontation with emotional wounds. So the fourth decade, which is happening on the precipice of the first Saturn return, is what we call the bridge between worlds. It's where emotional intelligence begins forming as self-awareness deepens. The expansion into personal sovereignty, seeing the world through both rational and intuitive perception. This is where the balance of shadow work and light work emerges. And then we go into the fifth decade, 40 to 50, the integration of wisdom. A new perspective arises. Patterns become clear, cycles are understood, emotional intelligence has deepened, and the transition toward universal intelligence begins. The ability to mentor, guide, and transmit wisdom to others emerges. So what happens beyond 50? The embodiment of universal intelligence. The shift from personal awakening to collective awakening. Consciousness no longer fights itself, it integrates. The ability to exist as an anchor of intelligence, love, and presence for the next generation. So how do these cycles running in parallel, how are they never-ending spirals of growth? How do we get all of these multidimensional directions combining into one and creating the beauty of sacred geometry? That's what the Mantis are here for, right? Here is the deeper understanding. The cycles of emotional immaturity to emotional intelligence to universal intelligence do not happen just once. They are not confined to a single moment, a single decade, or even a single lifetime. They are continuous, infinite spirals of evolution. A person can be in emotionally immature stages within their personal relationships while simultaneously standing in universal intelligence when it comes to their spiritual connection. Someone can embody emotional intelligence in their career while still unraveling their childhood wounds. These journeys do not cancel each other out, nor do they invalidate one another. They exist side by side, moving at their very own pace. This is why some lessons feel like they repeat, because they are not linear. They are spirals. And each time you revisit an old pattern, it is not because you have failed. It's because you are approaching it from a higher vantage point. You are spiraling upward, gaining a broader perspective with each and every cycle. So what does the future hold for us? It holds an integrated society of universal intelligence. That is what we are paving the way towards. Eventually, this individual journey reflects outward. What begins as personal evolution becomes collective evolution. The more individuals who awaken, the more the entire system begins to shift. The goal is not simply for one being to attain universal intelligence. It's for humanity to anchor it into the collective field, to anchor it into Earth and become one with it and the rest of the universe in consciousness. When enough individuals integrate emotional intelligence, when enough branches of the tree extend toward wisdom, the entire ecosystem transforms. A society rooted in integrated intelligence emerges, where knowledge, emotion, and consciousness work in harmony rather than in opposition. This is the natural trajectory of evolution. It is not a question of if. It's only when. And here's another direct transmission from the Mantis beings that came about when I was creating this script. A tree does not force its branches to grow in unison. Some extend early, others take their time, yet all are connected to the same source. Your journey is no different. You are not behind, nor are you ahead. You are moving as you were meant to, across multiple dimensions of self, across multiple timelines of experience. Growth is not a race, nor is it a straight path. It is a spiral, a web, a living intelligence unfolding in perfect rhythm. Trust the process. Every limb of your being is reaching toward the sky. And now that we understand that intelligence does not evolve in isolation, that multiple branches of self are awakening at once, we move to the final question. How do we embody this intelligence fully? How do we move beyond glimpsing universal intelligence and into living from it? How do we integrate these expanded states of awareness into our daily lives? That's what we're going to explore next. What it means to become a living expression of intelligence, to embody wisdom rather than simply seek it, and to step into life as an anchor of awakened consciousness. So what's it like, or how do we get to embodying and living from universal intelligence? What's the difference between seeking and embodying wisdom? For most of our lives, we have been trained to seek knowledge. We are conditioned to believe that intelligence is something we acquire, something we must strive for, something outside of us that we must grasp and work incredibly hard for. But universal intelligence does not work this way. It is not acquired, it is revealed. It is not outside. It is already within. The shift from seeking to embodying happens when you stop asking, how do I find wisdom? And instead, start living in a way that allows wisdom to move through you. When you stop trying to control knowledge and instead become a vessel for it, know and trust that awareness itself is the source of all intelligence. So what does it mean to embody this intelligence? It means to become a conduit for truth, rather than a collector of it. It means no longer seeing yourself as separate from wisdom, but as an extension of it. When universal intelligence is embodied, it becomes the guiding force behind every action, every word, every choice. It means moving through life without resistance, without force, without the need for rigid control. It means being deeply present, fully engaged, yet unattached to outcome. This does not mean that you will never face challenges. It means that you will face them with clarity instead of confusion, with flow instead of force. It means responding rather than reacting, perceiving rather than assuming, knowing rather than analyzing. So what are some signs that you are embodying universal intelligence? You move through life with ease, even in the midst of uncertainty. You no longer need to know the full path. You trust each step as it comes. Your emotions arise, and they do not control you. You observe them, understand them, and allow them to pass without attachment. Your mind is quieter, not because you suppress thoughts. It's because you no longer identify with them as an absolute truth, or any truth at all. And synchronicity increases. Opportunities, connections, and intuitive knowing align effortlessly as you are in resonance with a greater flow. And lastly, you no longer seek validation. Truth is self-evident to you. You do not need external approval to confirm it. This is what it means to live as intelligence, rather than seek it. The moment you stop grasping for wisdom is the moment it begins to move through you effortlessly. So how do we anchor this state into our daily life? Now that we understand the qualities of embodiment, the next step is integration. How do we ensure that universal intelligence is not just something we access in moments of stillness? It's something that becomes the foundation of how we live. Here are 3 key practices that anchor this intelligence into daily life. So number 1 is cultivating deep presence. Universal intelligence is only accessible in the present moment. Therefore, the more you are here, fully present, the clearer your perception becomes. This is why mindfulness, conscious awareness, and simply being fully engaged in each moment is so essential. The mind seeks to live in the past or the future. Intelligence exists only in the now. Number 2, listening instead of thinking. Most people live in a state of mental noise, always thinking, analyzing, and strategizing. And even more importantly, they're attaching themselves to those thoughts to create the analyzing, to begin the strategizing. True intelligence comes from listening to your intuition, listening to energy, listening to the space between words. When you stop overthinking and start listening, you begin to hear wisdom that was always present. However, it was once drowned out by all of the mental clutter. And number 3, responding, not reacting. When you are reactive, you are operating from conditioning. When you are responsive, you are operating from intelligence. Reactivity is fast, impulsive, often fear-driven. Response is slow, intentional, and clear. Living from universal intelligence means slowing down enough to perceive before you act. It means making decisions based on resonance, not reaction. So how do we become this anchor of intelligence? Now we arrive at the final understanding. Intelligence is not meant to be hoarded, nor is it meant to exist in isolation. When you embody universal intelligence, you become an anchor for it on this very planet. You hold a frequency that affects everything around you. Your embodiment is not just for you. This is one of the reasons that we say that recovery and healing is a selfish pathway, because in reality, it's also selfless at the same time. Because again, your embodiment is not just for you. It is for the evolution of consciousness itself. Just as one tree in a forest strengthens the roots of others, just as one drop of water ripples through an entire ocean, your state of being influences the collective field. The more individuals who anchor universal intelligence, the more it becomes a reality in the world. The more people who embody stillness, wisdom, and presence, the more these qualities become the foundation of humanity's next evolution. This is how we shift, not through force, not through persuasion, through embodiment. The more you live as intelligence, the more it spreads effortlessly. So we have one more transmission from the Mantis beings. And it says, "The greatest wisdom is silent. It does not need to convince. It does not seek to control. It simply exists as an undeniable presence. Those who are ready to perceive will perceive. Those who are ready to remember will remember. You are not here to awaken others. You are here to awaken yourself. And in doing so, you become the light that others will follow, not because they were told to. It's because they feel it is true. There is nothing left to seek. There is only what you already are. Now, live from it." So in conclusion, let's remember and take forward with us that you are already the intelligence you seek. The mind only needs to remember. The constructs of limitation were simply stages in your evolution, the branches of your tree extending toward greater light. And now you see. Now you feel. And now you begin to live from this intelligence fully. This journey never ends. The spiral continues. And today, something has shifted. You are no longer just walking the path. You are becoming it. Thank you for being here, for remembering, for stepping into your highest state of intelligence. Until next time, keep walking, keep expanding, and keep embodying the truth that has always been within you. And as we move deeper into the embodiment of universal intelligence, there is a realization that begins to surface. Intelligence is not just perceived. It is structured. There is an unseen blueprint woven into all things, a silent language spoken through patterns, numbers, and geometric codes. The universe is not random. Synchronicities are not coincidences. Every frequency carries a signature. Every moment unfolds according to a design. And those who learn to read this code begin to unlock the deeper mechanics of reality itself. In the next episode, we will uncover these sacred patterns, how numbers, fractals, and divine proportion reveal the intelligence of the universe. Because to know the code is to know the construct. And once you understand the construct, you begin to shape reality itself. If you feel called to explore these transmissions beyond this podcast, you can find alchemical and activational words of poetry and scripture encoded with frequency and deeper contemplations on Facebook and Instagram at Hermetically Speaking. And for everyday transmissions, short insights, energetic shifts, and real-time perspectives, you can follow me on TikTok at System of a Thought. We also have a YouTube channel at Hermetically Speaking that this podcast is uploaded to weekly. This journey is not just about knowledge. It is about activation. The words, the transmissions, the codes, they are all here for those who are ready to receive them. If you are drawn to this path, trust that pull. The mind may seek understanding, but the soul recognizes truth before the mind ever does. Namaste and many blessings on your way. Until next time, much love.